Right, one person here, apart from me. So we'll kick off 2200. If you or anyone else who joins later wondering what that red thing is in the back of my head, sticking out of the back of my head, it isn't an antenna, it's an audible. Yeah, I've had so many medical problems over the years. The neck, because I've had a neck problem since I was very young. Back injury since 1993, and I got a problem with my right foot. Okay, so hopefully some more people will be joining in due course. A few preliminaries. First of all, my apologies for coughing like hell previously. As I pointed out, the current software I have magnifies coughing and spluttering sixfold, if not tenfold. Not so much snoring tonight. I've been sleeping. I had some sleep this afternoon. I've got hardware problems at the moment. Tuesday, I needed a new keyboard because the other one that the lettering was wearing off. So I bought a new keyboard, and I goofed installing it. I ended up pulling out the wrong leads at the back. I think the mouse went. I mean, the mouse would move, but the clicks wouldn't work. I checked that on another computer and it still wouldn't work. But when I took it back took the old mouse to the shop, he said it was okay. Well, I lost sound. Then I lost sound. As it is, I've got. Well, I couldn't hear sound on this machine. So I uploaded a video to YouTube and listened to as an unlisted video, and then uploaded it to another machine where I could download it from, played it on another machine, and I could hear it quite well. Well, I did actually did two short test videos. One 8 seconds, another about 17 seconds. I said something like, "Can anybody hear me?" And Martin Malinowski left a message that he had heard me. So I wasn't expecting that. So thank you very much, Martin, for paying attention when nobody else does. As things stand, I have, what have I got here? Let's have a look. I have 224 subscribers. I lost one and then got one back. So 224 subscribers. And as you can see, I've got one person join me so far. So, but people like me have definitely been sabotaged. My videos don't get. One time I used to get thousands of views, but now I get like a couple of dozen. It's absolutely outrageous what's happening with censorship. I don't blame Google or Yahoo. I blame they've obviously been under a lot of pressure. Financial pressure and for other sort of pressure. It's absolutely disgraceful what's been happening, especially in America. So I've got mono, although apparently you should be able to hear stereo. One other matter I will mention is that I'm going to do a video at some point fairly soon about the grand conspiracy. As some of you may know, there are people out there, a lot of them, who believe that there are vast networks of paedophiles and rapists that trade in babies and sacrifice babies to the devil and rape them and rape women. I mean, it's absolutely amazing stuff. Well, I say amazing. They believe that the government is some of them believe that all the governments in the Western world, if not the entire world, are involved in this. There's absolutely no arguing with them. Sabine McNeil, who is a woman I know slightly. I met her financial. Of course, She's on my mailing list as well. Highly intelligent woman, as I've said before. She has a stratospheric IQ and not a nanogram of common sense. She was on trial the past 3 or 4 weeks at Southwark Crown Court for well, if you go to the Hoaxstead website, the Hoaxstead blog, it will explain all about it. This ludicrous story about babies being, about networks of babies being raped and sacrificed, and she believed in that passionately. She was on trial at Southwark Crown Court. She'd been in custody for 9 months after breaking restraining orders. That she's been convicted today on, I think, 4 counts of harassment and 7 of breaking restraining orders. So she's going to be sentenced fairly soon, hopefully not too long. It's really tragic that the woman who dragged her into all this nonsense to begin with is an evil old witch called Belinda Mackenzie, and she was kind of arrested at court the other day. I only went there one day, was I think Tuesday last week, and apologise for yawning. Belinda Mackenzie was kind of arrested. She was called to the witness box by the judge because she'd been in contempt of court. So hopefully she'll get a little prison time for only a couple of weeks. That is very, very sad because Sabine is, she's I feel sorry for her. 74 years old now, and it's but I mean, when people go to those extremes, there's not really a lot can be done. Right, this segment. Oh, somebody else. Hello, whoever it is, whoever you are. Right, you're just in time for the preliminaries over. I'm talking tonight about man haters and female psychopaths, because I believe. Oh, now we're down to one person again. Please don't go. We're down to talking about man haters and female psychopaths, because I believe a lot of false rape allegations are we don't give the fair sex enough credit for their obnoxious behaviour. So I'd like to start with 2 quotes. This is one I like this quote. This is from Judge Horton in the 1931 Scottsboro Boys trial. History, sacred and profane, and the common experience of mankind teach us that women of the character shown in this case are prone for selfish reasons to make false allegations both of rape and of insult upon the slightest provocation, or even without provocation, for ulterior purposes. And an even better one, this is from 1919. Sex is woman's strongest weapon. She uses it as a weapon of defense and offense. She uses it to attract and to repel, to reward and to punish. When intent upon punishment, she is utterly without scruples, and there is no vileness, no falsehood at which she will draw the line. But caveat here, apart from those, the opinions given here, stated explicitly otherwise on my own. Yeah, so I think a lot of false rape allegations are due to the more dedicated ones against named individuals are by female psychopaths. We call people who hurt other people gratuitous, and we call them psychopaths. We have no problem identifying men as such. Psychopaths aren't always murderers, and some sort. I mean, there's been a lot of research done on this in recent years. That a lot of said to be a lot of people in business as psychopaths. But whether he was psychopath or sociopath, one is said to be born, the other made. I'm not really bothered here. But we all understand that there are certain men out there who, if you look at them the wrong way, are going to punch in the face or hit over the back of the head. We all understand that there are men who enjoy inflicting pain on other people, some on women. We're told this is because it's gendered violence. In fact, what you find generally is that serial killers, for example, who murder women, and exclusively women, are heterosexual, whereas homosexual serial killers murder exclusively men. Ted Bundy was, he was the original serial killer, but it was the Bundy case that led to the phrase serial killer. Before that, these were known as stranger murders. But Ted Bundy, who said to have murdered one man, but all these other victims were women. Overwhelmingly, though, I think one, maybe two black women amongst them, but mostly white women, attractive young white women with long hair, blondish. Terrible. I've got to think about blondes. Whereas homosexuals, John Gacy was actually married twice, but he became homosexual. He murdered exclusively men and boys. Jeffrey Dahmer, all his victims were male. Dennis Nilsen, who died, I think, this year or last year or earlier this year, he was homosexual. He murdered exclusively men. The exception, Colin Ireland, was he was a homo hater, but there's no gendered. All this gendered violence thing is complete nonsense. When you hear about, I could put it, whenever a woman is accused of, when a woman makes a false rape allegation, if it's gratuitous, if there's perhaps no real reason she should have accused a particular man, you find that there's a stock phrase which is used to excuse or to minimize her perfidy. That is mental health issues. She's had to have mental health issues. This implies that she's a victim. She's even if she's actually a victim, she is a victim. Perhaps she's been sexually abused before. There's some issue there, and she's deserving of compassion, treatment, sympathy, instead of punishment. Over the whole the mental health industry that is something slightly different, but mental illness, so-called, doesn't actually exist. Now, that requires some explaining here. The United States Census of 1840 listed in categories idiocy, stroke, insanity. By 1980, this disappeared, and you had 7 categories. I'm reading from the list here. This is dementia, dipsomania, epilepsy, mania, melancholia, monomania, and paresis. Dementia, well, that isn't really a mental illness. Epilepsy is not a mental illness. Dipsomania is drinking too much. In 1952, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders was published. That's known by the acronym DSM. That was DSM-1. It was a very slim book. The latest edition, well, the second edition was run to 134 pages. That was 1968. Third edition was published in 1987, and that was 567 pages, and disorders included insomnia and factitious disorders. There's one, trichotillomania, failure to resist impulses to pull out one's own hair, which is the list of disorders keeps growing. And in May 2013, it was nearly 1,000 pages, and one there's a 5th edition. One critic asked, "Has the manual gone mental?" Now, so-called mental disorders. If you haven't heard of him, check out Thomas Sars, who died in 2012. A great man, and he made the very astute but simple observation is that so-called mental illness, no so-called mental illness has a pathology, therefore it can't be an illness. What is generally known as a mental illness is either a behaviour or belief, usually, but mostly behaviours. How can I put it? If you have a cold, right, that's caused by a virus. If you have, if you contract something like tuberculosis, that is caused by a bacterium. Slightly different are degenerative diseases such as coronary heart disease, but what they all have in common is that at autopsy, you can tell this person was suffering from a cold, or he was killed by pneumonia, or he had coronary heart disease. But so-called mental illnesses, there's no pathology, there's nothing there. Another observation SARS made is that when the cause of a so-called mental illness is discovered, it's removed from the list of mental illnesses and reclassified as a neurological illness. I mean, dementia, for example, is something going wrong with the brain. If you see somebody shaking like that, and you're told he has Parkinson's disease, you don't think that this person is mentally ill, because you may not understand that. Only doctors and people with medical knowledge understand injuries of it, but there's something wrong with the body's wiring. Now, one of my favourites is there's been an ever-expanding list of so-called mental illnesses. One of my favourites is a few years ago, there was a banker in Hong Kong, a bloke named Rurik Jutting, and he lured 2 prostitutes back to his apartment on separate occasions, and he tortured them and murdered them. At his trial, a so-called expert witness claimed he was suffering from other things, sexual sadism disorder, which is what he enjoys torturing and killing people. Now, that is not an illness; it's a description of behaviour. And so, I mean, what we have here is free will. Now, people who have these so-called disorders exercise their free will to do these things. Now, you can it gets a bit blurred here, because I mean, there are some. I mean, alcoholism, for example, and drug dependency. They affect the body as well. So, if an alcoholic goes cold turkey, they get delirium tremens, shaking like that, and so a drug addict. And also, our environment affects us profusely. I mean, if you lock a man in a cell for 23 hours a day for months or years on end, you wouldn't be surprised if he goes gaga. If a number of people are stuck in a lift for many hours, it may be that arguments break out, and so on. But with those caveats, that there is no such thing as a mental illness. So when women who make false allegations of rape gratuitously, instead of excusing them, saying they're suffering from mental health issues, it should be recognised that they are psychopaths or guilty of psychopathic behaviour. I've been doing some research lately, unrelated research. This isn't a rape case. This is from the Bradford Telegraph and Argus, March the 2nd, 1982. A woman named Christine Wardley started a fire in a block of flats at Bradford. A man was killed in that. At Leeds Crown Court, she admitted to manslaughter of Colin Gunn, but denied arson. The prosecution accepted her plea. She separated from her husband. She got 2 years. She got. It's amazing. She's actually started 2 other fires. The fireman fell at first place. So she killed a man in behaviour which is absolutely gratuitous, senseless, and she gets 2 years for it. Now, if she'd accused a man of rape falsely, it would have been mental health issues. Now, I want to talk about one case here, because I've actually spoken to the guy concerned, and I've corresponded with him. He was, this become quite notorious away. Alex, in just before Christmas 2013, was it 2013? It's 2013. Alexander Economou met up with Eleanor de Freitas, a girl who said to have breasts to die for. They've been corresponding through Facebook. She spent the night at his apartment. He comes from a wealthy family, Greek background. From what I've made extensive inquiries, but it's sort of, they're very sort of circumspect, don't flash their wealth around them, and very, very modest people. And I haven't spoken to him about this, but I thought, he was 35 at the time, handsome, intelligent, charismatic, just like me. Well, we both call Alexander, and she was quite a bit younger. Well, it's about 12 years younger, but it seemed to me that on paper they were a dream couple. She was behaving rather strangely. I spent the night at his flat, had sex several times, and he said the following day she was behaving rather strangely. So he ran her name through his search engine, something he should have done before, and he concluded, rightly or wrongly, that she was a prostitute. She was engaged in tantric services, massage and stuff, but I don't know if it. I mean, he thought she was a prostitute and probably done more research than I'd done. And he probably afraid that he caught something, he decided to break it off. He didn't want to see her again. And she started spreading rumours about him. And after in the new year, she went to the police and accused him of rape. And just as there's no set way for a rape victim to behave, so is there no set way for a falsely accused man to behave. I think if it had been charged and convicted, he'd probably have committed suicide. I mean, we've seen this before. Jay Cheshire was a 17-year-old kid, but there's at least two other men falsely accused of rape in the UK in recent years, fairly recent years, were committed suicide. There was a bloke called Luke something, who was a rugby player. There was a guy called Stephen McLaughlin in Scotland. Anyway, the police arrested him and he was bailed pending further inquiries. Rather than wait for the police to carry out further inquiries, you'll find this case on the timeline, by the way. He carried out. He realised that they'd been shopping after the alleged rape, so he got CCTV evidence, and it showed that she was in his company and very comfortable and not running off, etc. Which is proof for me anyway, and undoubtedly proof for a jury that she was not drugged and raped, as she claimed. But he wasn't satisfied with that, so he probably wanted it being felt to be slurred, and he wanted to clear himself entirely. So he bought a a private prosecution against her, which was taken over by the CPS, and shortly before the trial, she committed suicide. Tragic. He expressed sympathy with the family. I'm not sure how much sympathy I would have expressed at the demise of a woman who tried to destroy me, because that's what happened. He would have been tainted for life and a social outcast, a pariah, you know. Unless your name's Mike Tyson, of course, we can get away with things like that. There's that case is over, but he ended up suing the father of Eleanor de Freitas, who was going around claiming that he was astounded that Eleanor was charged, that there was no evidence, yada yada yada. What he conveniently missed, apart from the fact that she'd accused her parents of poisoning her at one time and was gaga, was that she'd actually, Alexandra Kalamba was not actually the first man she'd falsely accused. I've got a Freedom of Information request. I know it's 2012. I haven't got any more information on it. I doubt I'll get it, but so I mean, rather than being mentally ill, suffering from or bipolar disorder, it's called now, mania, Eleanor de Freitas was a psychopath, I'm afraid. Which brings us conveniently to man haters, because one of her staunchest defenders is of the University of Arkansas School of Law. I wonder if Hillary Clinton taught. She was a law professor in Arkansas for probably. Oh dear. Well, if Lisa Avalos isn't a man hater, she certainly looks like one. Certainly looks like she's never slept with a man, if you get my drift. And she's produced at least 3 papers for. There's one here for the prosecuting rape victims while rapists run free. The consequences of police failure to investigate sex crimes in Britain and the United States. This is dated 2019, and it was obviously published before that. She covers that case, and I don't disagree with absolutely everything she says, because she covers, I think it's 8 cases here, 4th in the United States and 4th in the UK. But the way she doesn't identify here. She calls him John Doe, but it's obvious that it's him, and she implies that he actually did rape poor Eleanor. I mean, if you've read my articles or seen my the video in which I mentioned rape trauma syndrome, those who ascribe to rape trauma syndrome, there's no way of refuting an allegation of rape. No way ever. I mean, because any symptom is capable of any behaviour is now she does give here. I think there's 8 cases. I'm looking at the paper now. There's 8 cases, or maybe one of other papers. She gives examples of DM Patty cases. 2 women in America who were raped. Sarah Reed. We pronounce Sara. Sarah. Americans call it Sarah. Sarah Reedy was she was actually orally raped by a guy. She was working at a convenience store. A guy robbed it and forced her to fillet him. You know, an eclectic crime, I suppose. And she was questioned by the police. Who didn't believe her, and she had a bit of a history. She claimed to have been. I think she claimed to have been sexually abused as a child, but they bludgeoned her into confessing she had made it up, and she was. I think she got a fine. I should know. I've got paper in front of me. They didn't believe her, and according to Avalos, the police refused to investigate the case. And eventually, the guy who raped her was actually caught. He was a serial rapist. There's another one, a woman named Patty. I think this is a blind woman who was yeah, I mean, she confessed it to falsely confessed to being to making it up, and it turned out she actually was raped. Now these are results as the Akinoma case. Poor investigation. If they, well, I mean, who says they would have investigated fully? You know, at the time you had this sort of believe the victim mantra, but she goes way over the top. Now, there's a case here for there's a woman who this is another UK case. in this paper or another paper, she claimed that Rhiannon Brooker was innocent, which, if you read the court judgment on the Rhiannon, Sherwood, that's a Sherwood, the Rhiannon Brooker case, it's absolutely amazing that anyone could consider that she was telling the truth. She 36 days in jail. Now, this, I mean, yeah, she mentions Brooker's case here. Now, also the case of Gail Sherwood. This is absolutely incredible. She says here that Sherwood got a 2-year sentence. Just enduring separation from her 3 daughters, the youngest of whom were 14 and 16 at the time. So women shouldn't go to jail because they've got daughters, I see. And she claims that Sherwood was innocent. Sherwood was an absolute head case. It's Brooker and Sherwood also genuine victims. Anyone who, just read out some background on the Gail Sherwood case, so you'll realise just how far off the planet this woman is. This was something called one waiting. What does that mean? Oh, one watching. Oh dear. There's 2 people here. The Gail Sherwood case is absolutely amazing. Where are we? Gail Sherwood was what's going on here? I'm sure I had that. Yeah. Gail Sherwood was, I mean, she's. I've got an article about it. Give me a second to find the article. It's to claim this woman was actually raped. You have to, you seriously have to be living on another planet. That one. Yeah, Sherwood. She made more than one allegation. I mean, she was living out in the country, and not in the city anyway. Not in suburbia. She calls the arrest of an innocent man. It says it's from the Up and Democracy website. It says she was raped 3 times by a stalker, forced to retract her allegations, sentenced to 2 years in prison. Well, it's. I mean, no. I mean, the police set up a camera outside when the allegations were when they thought they were being had. But I'm got it here, but it's the claims that she I should expand the entry for Sherwood, but she claimed to have been. This will show you how absurd it is. She claimed that prior to making, this is from CPS website. Well, what I found a local press report, and the police put out a helicopter. They realised her injuries were self-inflicted. She claimed at one point that a bloke entered her home and threatened her and disappeared without trace. That she'd received letters from her so-called stalker, burned them because she was afraid that she wouldn't be believed. Total head case. And according to Lisa Avalos, she's a credible victim. Avalos is far from the only man-hater to engage to involved in the so-called anti-rape movement. Julie Bindel and her lover Harriet Wistrich, they've actually set up a website, Justice for Women, in which they lobby for women who've been convicted of murdering their lovers. Check out the case of I keep forgetting names. Oh God, where has it gone? There's Stark Emma Humphries. Yeah, she's on the timeline. I also wrote an in-depth article, the canonisation of Emma Humphries. Yeah, obviously, where a false allegation is gratuitous, it needs to be punished. This women again. I'll maybe do a separate live stream on the women who can do no evil mantra, the victim narrative. But to show you how absurd this is, the two cases, the case of Jodi Arias, which isn't a rape case, and Aileen Wuornos, the serial killer, who claimed she was raped when she wasn't. If you're not familiar with the Jodi Arias case, you'll find lots of video of it on YouTube. Arias murdered her lover, former lover, Travis Alexander. She went. I mean, she did this. She drove. Well, what she did. First thing she did was she staged a burglary at the home of her grandmother, where she'd be living, and she stole a gun. She hired a car, and she bought. She had three big drums for gas, electricity, gas. What we in England call petrol, and she drove through the desert from California to Mesa, Arizona. She had these drums so that she couldn't. So that if you stop at gas stations, there'll be CCTV. She'd let to all the gas stations. She drove to Mesa, where Travis Alexander lived. She bluffed her way into his home with a promise of sex. They had it off in the bedroom. Then she lured him into the shower on the pretext of taking photographs of him posing. I mean, she's a talented photographer and an artist. But she did that to destroy forensic evidence. While he was in the shower with his back turned, showing off those pecs, she stabbed him in the back, stabbed him about 28 to 29 times, nearly hacked off his head, and for good measure put a bullet in his brain. Then when she left, she phoned him to create an alibi, for a mobile phone. She hadn't seen him. But the police found evidence that they found compelling evidence that she'd been at the scene. First of all, she denied that she was there. Then she claimed that she was there, but Travis was murdered by 2 ninjas, a man and a woman. She wouldn't, but for some reason they didn't kill her. And finally, she admitted she had killed him, but he'd done so in self-defense. And she made all manner of scurrilous allegations against him, including at one time she walked into his bedroom, I think it was his bedroom, and found him masturbating to child porn, of a baby, of a young boy. And when she was tried for capital murder in Arizona, and the defense produced a male, I forget his name now, so-called expert witness who testified for $250 an hour that Jody was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder on account of the murder. If you look, imagine the chutzpah of that, you know. And Alice Lavaliette, a so-called domestic violence expert. I'm going to play you a very short clip. In Arizona, juries are permitted to question witnesses. They do so to the judge, and the person who posted this clip said that this was the moment at which Alice Lavaliette sold a piece of her soul. You listen to this; it's absolutely incredible. The male voice you hear is the prosecutor, who became something of a celebrity during the trial. After the trial, Mr. Martinez objecting to the answer. So here it is.
On the website, we have meaning multiple verbal slurs: a slap, a shove, a chuckle, and a lunge perpetrated on Jody. On the other, a gunshot in the head, a bullet into the split throat, close to 30 stab wounds delivered by Jody to Travis. He is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence in Jody. I think what happened to Mr. Alexander was horrific. Sustained. I think that self-defense versus the objection. The question is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence Jody.
That's absolutely outrageous. If you couldn't hear that properly, here's the link. I should put that on the. I may actually incorporate that into the video. So women can do no wrong. Even more insane than that was loony feminist Phyllis Chesler. I don't know if she's a man hater. She's certainly, she's certainly not much of an academic. She published an article about Aileen Wuornos in a peer-reviewed journal. You probably have heard of Aileen Wuornos. Certainly, even if you're half my age, she's sometimes called America's first female serial killer. Excuse me. She's not the first serial. She was not America's first serial killer, not by a long shot, and nothing like the worst. She had a horrible start in life. She was pregnant, I think, at 13. Had the baby taken away from her. Her own father committed suicide in prison, where he was charged with raping a boy. I don't know where they find these people. I really don't. When she was 19, I think, she decided to head south to sunny Florida. On the way there, she met this guy who was about 70, became infatuated with her, and they married. Now, she could have, if she played her cards right, she could have, if you remember Anna Nicole Smith, she could have been the lady of the manor and at least made something of a life for herself. But instead, the marriage was annulled after about 3 weeks because she was attacking him with his walking stick. Her brother died and left her, I think it's $5,000, maybe 10,000. I think 5,000. Not a great deal of money, but it would have set her up an apartment. You know, I mean, you'd give them. So not all men treated her like rubbish. Instead, she became a prostitute, and she decided she wanted to become a lesbian. She was a professional prostitute, but a lesbian in her personal life. She murdered a man named Richard Mallory, who was a convicted sex offender. He'd been convicted of a serious sexual offence when the year she was born. It's the year I was born, actually, 1956. She claimed, well, basically, she claimed that Chesler says that Richard Mallory raped her, and this triggered something which led her to murder 6 other men. She was tried. She murdered 7 men, but she was tried. I think it was 3 trials for 6 murders. She became a born again Christian, you know, pragmatically, and she admitted. Well, Mallory didn't rape her. Neither did any of the other men. She claimed. So it's just a cop out. You'll find lots of other cases, quite a few other cases, on the force rape timeline of women whose behaviour is absolutely outrageous. Maria Marchesa is that's a UK case, but there's actually been a dramatisation made about that. She latched onto a psychologist and framed him by, I mean, she actually went through his dustbin and found a used condom, which I don't know why. This guy was living with his girlfriend, so why he's using condoms, I don't know. I certainly think they're disgusting. I would never dream of using them, but I don't go with slags, so at least not knowingly. Not to mention anyone in Reigate. But Maria Marchesa, who she only got in 9 years. The case of Emma Saxon is another one. She's a double force rape accuser, more than that. In 2000, and that's not the first one. Yeah, in 2006, she accused a former boyfriend of rape and was given a fixed penalty notice. What would he have got if he'd been convicted? In July 16, 2010, she had sex with a guy named Martin Blood. They met at a hotel. They agreed to meet for sex. I can't be sure. I don't think they had sex. Well, he realised that she was, put it this way, she probably wasn't, she's probably a 3 out of 10, and he was presumably more than that. I haven't seen a photograph of him. She was claimed to be raped in a supermarket car park. He was arrested, medical examination, and she ended up, you'll see her photograph, she's 1.5 out of 10 maybe. That's for a bloke of my age. And she also set fire to her flat, I think. She did. Let's have a look. I've got it here, but she set fire to December 2013. This is after she was released from prison. December 2013, she was given a 14-month sentence for arson. Apparently part of planned suicide attempt. I mean, 14-month sentence in a block of flats. She did that, so that's incredibly lean. I mean, she could have killed other people besides herself. This is, we don't give women enough credit for their bad behaviour. And what do you think about this? Female psychopaths are a lot cleverer than male psychopaths because, as I mentioned, the guy who will You look at him the wrong way and he'll hit you in the face with a bottle or stab you or something. That entails a great deal of risk, doesn't it? I mean, to assault somebody in the street gratuitously, you look at a jail sentence if you're caught. Yeah. And nowadays with CCTV and witnesses, I mean, it's quite likely that somebody who assaults a man who assaults another man or a woman gratuitously we'll be looking at some sort of jail sentence, and of course the sentences get longer as the offences. You know, the guy who's got his second conviction for violence, he's probably going to get a heavier sentence than the first one. And even when it comes to serial killers and serial rapists, I mean, they're going to get caught eventually, aren't they? Because, you know, in the modern day, in this day and age, people, I mean, a man may get away with one murder, but 2, 3, 4, the evidence mounts up, the pool of suspect shrinks, and you know, they're almost all serial killers are brought to book. But it's just people who are just violent, you know, not to that extent. Who can't control themselves, or psychopathic or pathologically violent. They're going to get and they spend a lot of time in prison. But a false rape allegation, if it's time, I mean, if there's any purported delay, really, or if there really was sex, what's the downside for it? If a woman is angry at a man, if she's angry at a particular type of man or just society, or if she wants to hurt a stranger, all she has to do is cry rape. And she says that she was raped 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and I didn't report it at the time because I didn't think I'd be believed. And of course, I just froze. Where's the downside? Because the allegation may not be proved, but even if a guy is questioned, his reputation is on suspicion of rape. You know, it's gonna. Any future girlfriend is going to know that he was accused, and of course, no smoke without fire. And what does feminists say? What does the Rape Crisis Network say? Just because the man was acquitted doesn't mean you weren't believed. So I think a lot of these false rape allegations are women who, you know, I mean, you have women who drink and their memories are incomplete. Women who make false allegations for attention seeking or to get back at a man as an act, just a calculated act of revenge. But there's a real hardcore women out there who are psychopaths, and I say, unlike male psychopaths, they don't generally assault people. They do sometimes, you know. The women, there is evidence, not just anecdotal evidence, but there is evidence that women are becoming more violent, not just against men, but against other women. We've seen quite a few cases of this, and again, they're almost always treated as though they're victims. There's a case not fairly recently of a girl who was hit in the face with a glass, and her attacker will be out of prison in no time. So I think that is, we can argue why there are more psychopaths around, but I think the fact that there are psychopaths, and there are, I mean, as with regard to man haters, there's never any problem of the anyone floats the idea that the men hate women. Well, we have this gendered violence nonsense. We have this violence against women and girls stuff, don't we? I mean, nobody bats an eyelid at that. So the idea that there are women out there who hate men and will go out of their way to hurt men, be they a particular man, a particular type of man, or men in general, what's so controversial about it? So you could argue why my own view is that there are more mental defectives born nowadays because society has become, medicine has become dysgenic. But yeah, whether it's chemicals in the air, chemicals in our food, but of course, at the end of the day, there's free will, and there are more people out there, more women out there who are liable to be violent than there have ever been. So anyway, I've covered quite a lot of ground there. I would encourage you to check out Thomas Sars. If you can get hold of his book, The Manufacture of Madness. That's a very good. That's the first of his works I read. You'll find him on find his speeches on YouTube, and there is a Thomas Sars website. I think there still is. I think there is. Yeah. He's not the only person to come up with this idea. Well, he was the first to come up with the idea, but there's a lot of he died at the age of 92. Yeah, there's papers at Syracuse University. The Thomas Sars, SARS.com. A great man, a great thinker. But I've actually corresponded with the guy who created that website. But I think gratuitous false rape allegations are definitely a way for a certain type of woman to attack men, or man, or men in general. And let's say there are plenty of man haters out there. As I mentioned, Julie Bindel and Harriet Wistrich. But there are plenty of man haters out there who will collaborate with them, as it were, and Lisa Avalos, of course. I may have to do a presentation on feminist so-called scholarship at some point. But anyway, that's about it. If anyone has any questions, anybody know? Any questions? Either of you? Well, you can email me at any time, and I'll put this on the Internet Archive. So when I finish this hangout, I'll set it to private. I'll edit out the irrelevant stuff at the beginning. I'll put it on my YouTube site and also on the Internet Archive. The next live hangout will be probably mid-January. We've got Christmas coming up, and the country goes to sleep for a fortnight. There's no point doing one before Christmas. I'll probably be covering the Grand Conspiracy then, which should be great fun, which will cover government paedophile rings and nonsense like that. And it isn't all fantasy. There have been cover-ups out there. I don't mean specifically the Catholic Church. A lot of priests have been falsely accused, maybe even the majority, but there's quite a few out there, mostly homosexuals who've been, doing things they shouldn't be doing with underage boys. And the church has, instead of handing them over to the authorities, has moved them around or sent them for treatment and whatever. These grandiose fantasies of Jimmy Savile, Edward Heath, and you got you got Jeffrey Epstein, who was definitely involved in doing things that he shouldn't have been doing with slightly underage girls, who were well remunerated for their services, but he shouldn't be doing it anyway. I'll cover that the Grand Conspiracy, and another time I may do weaponization and trawling. So that's two future live streams. So anyway, thank you for coming, both of you. Hopefully some more will be watching this. Sean in the Irish Republic says he has trouble watching it live. He's got slow connection or whatever. so you will be watching it later, and hopefully to my Australian contact. It's 11 o'clock now, so I'll end this stream here, and I will see you and hopefully a lot more people again around about mid-January.